Hello, hello, hello. All right, so I'm gonna start by apologizing for being so late. I hate this. Idea. Is that better? I think that's much better. There's not much of a glare. The lighting's a little weird, but that'll be okay. So, I'm not closing the blinds, Pop. It's natural lighting. I want this light. So, everyone, I'm going to apologize for being 30 minutes late to this live. I pushed it 15. I wanted to reread the Yasarian chapter at the end, and it took me a little more time than I thought. I'm sorry. I'm in New York this weekend, having a good time, seeing a lot of friends. It's been really cool. And I'm very excited to talk to you about this book, Catch-22. So, before we go into Catch-22, I just want to say, Pops, the name of the song, for everyone that's asking, and my Pops, the name of the song is Escape by Natik. And Natik, as you guys know, is Esther's younger brother, Nathan. It's literally one of my favorite songs. So, it's been in my head all week. So before we jump into this book, I just want to say congratulations. We read another book. We finished Catch-22. It was it was a big one, right? How does everyone feel? We finally finished. What do we think? What do we think? What do we think of Catch-22? How do we think the book ended? Do we feel good about it? Just let's hear our first thoughts about this book. What a long book. Absolutely. 9th book. Hell yeah. Such a good book. Good. I'm glad. I feel accomplished. It's a beautiful thing when we finish a book. It really puts us in a mindset of like, oh, we just did that. I'm happy it's over and done with. You know what? Linda the Spud, also love that name. I would agree. Arguably the most challenging book, but it was my favorite. I'm grateful I was able to read this with everyone. I would agree. Applause to all of us. I like all of these I'm seeing. Frustrating. Indigo, why frustrating? Keep going into that. I can read it again. I loved it. Wow. The finale was weird. Right? Really good book. Alright. You appreciate more now. Yasarian, though, right? I think he redeemed himself. I really liked him. I expected an ending similar to 1904, but was kind of surprised. Okay. I liked the message and the topic, but was not a big fan of the style. I would agree with that. I'm glad I read it all. We made it to the end. Yes, we did! That moment when you accidentally... I feel so proud for finishing this book. It wasn't simple, and at the beginning I wanted to give up, but I'm glad I did it. It was very challenging, and I liked it. The book came together a lot at the end, and it was surprisingly hopeful. Complicated, but I love it. It took me a while to get into, but glad I kept going and enjoyed the end. One of my favorite books. Wow, cool. I found it hard to get into the story every time I felt like I was there and enjoying the story. Something would yank me out. I agree with that, and I wonder what that was. I wonder why. I wonder if he managed to actually run away to Switzerland. Was it Switzerland or Sweden? I didn't expect Or to be alive, but it made much sense after he'd been practicing Yasarian's Hope. I think I'm going to read it again sometime. I think I'm going to read it again sometime in the future as well. It was just, it's one of those books that I think I'm going to read in like 5 or 10 years when it's been a bit, and I think I've grown, and I think I've changed, and I think I've done things. I think that's totally the vibe. It was a good book with such amazing morals. Not a book I'd read twice. It's not my style. It still felt like I was into it by the time we were done reading our set pages. I was interested. Okay, cool. I really hope you're eating more than just cookies and juice. Anyway, oh guys, sorry, I got behind the questions. Alright, so I'm going to say my impressions of it. My impressions of this book, now that we're done, and we've all gotten through it, I can say that this was not my favorite book. Not by far. It was difficult to read. I agree that it pulled me out at times when I was being sucked in. I think one of the things that this book kind of does is you have to just, like, trust it. And I think that's hard. In a way that you're like, you kind of want to be like, you're sorry and just ditch it. You're like, why am I still reading this book? Like, what's going on? Like, I could just leave. You know, you could, and I think it's, I don't know if it's meant to make you feel like that, but then you get through it, and like there is hope at the end. You're like, oh, I finished. So like, not my style, very confusing, but we did it. And guys, I will agree with you 100%. Not my style. I can't wait to talk about Breakfast of Champions and move on. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm glad we finished it. I like the note that it ended. I think it's hilarious that what Yossarian wanted the whole time, or was working on, without being able to tell him. It was like he had to play the game, and he had to do it right, and he eventually got what he wanted from it. I'm glad I read it, but it made my brain hurt. Alright, so, I'm so done with this book, right? I can't wait to start Breakfast of Champions, but let's talk about it. Let's talk about how this ended. I think despite being satire, it feels very raw and honest. It focused a lot on how selfish people were. Milo, the colonels, even the soldiers. But everyone was selfish in a different way. And I think there's something to that. I'm so glad you picked up on that, Kenzie Courtney, because there's something to that bubble that they all put themselves in to survive, and then the abuse of power in order to place themselves in a better place. And one of Yossarian's arguments at the end was like, look, this war is going to be over. Now these people are just trying to fill their pockets before it's done. And it came at the expense of other human life. And that was something that really Yossarian was done with, which I thought was cool and very noble. Also, he ended up being a character that I thought was very selfish and stupid, and you realized it's almost like it took us a while to realize the world he was living in and how that he was trying to survive. And then I ended up actually liking him at the end as a protagonist, and I was looking to see how he was dealing with things. But let's talk about this book a little bit more before we really run away from it, right? I know everyone wants to get out of this book, but let's really talk about it. Technically, the war was over, but they were just dragging it on pointlessly. I feel really bad for Nately. Let's talk about Nately. I feel really bad for Nately too. I feel bad for Nately. I feel bad for Chief Whitetail. I feel bad for all 8 people that were on those 2 planes with Nately. I think it was one of the redeeming things, you know? And wanting to help that sister, I think he saw something, he was like, this can still, not everything's ruined from this war. Aw. So I'm drinking one of these Mama Chia things. I don't know why, I like them. And it says, what opens your heart? Oh my God. I would love to do some Stephen King, so yes, I'm going to start thinking about which ones we should put on the list. Yes, Rena Lightwood, Orr is still alive. What we discovered was that Orr was the guy. Remember, they said that Orr crashed his plane so many times. And Orr had to, at one point, he did come in from the sea back to the island on his way home. So, what I think is that Yossarian saw that Orr was trying to do the same thing Yossarian was, which was get out. But Orr did in a way that he was right. Orr was practicing on their dime, and eventually was able to escape. It took some work, and he kept inviting Yossarian with him. But he said no. I have read The Outsiders. It's very good. We should read that again, though. But that's the thing, Jordan. They say that Orr did plan it. They've stolen him away. He's hollow inside. They just took him away and left those bandages there. I think that's kind of like all the soldiers. Put into war, but their soul was stolen. Kenzie Courtney, badass. Yes, I would totally agree with that. I think that guy was... why were they all so aware of him and so nervous by him, and they all wanted to know about him? I think it's exactly that. It's that he represented like a... And it only came at certain times, right? He came right at the beginning when they were all at the hospital. And I think it's interesting that, again, when Yossarian's at the hospital with the chaplain and everything, it was like full circle. It was almost like a circular thing they were going on. To me, it made it feel like it came like this. Because the next circle is the next choice for them to continue. Do we continue in this circle where everyone's only trying to pursue their interests and push forward what they want most and not really know what's going on? Or can they make the choice to break that circle for a new one? And I think that's what Yossarian's doing there. But awesome insight, awesome quote, Kenzie Courtney. That's really cool. Really cool. It might be laggy because I'm in New York and I'm not really connected to a Wi-Fi right now. So if it's laggy, I'm sorry, guys. All right, so I'm gonna ask a question. I don't know. I know we have probably around 40 minutes left. It's probably not even been 20. How long do we want to talk about the end of Catch-22? How long do we want to talk about Breakfast of Champions? Because we can talk about this the whole time, which I think we should. But if we wanted to, because I feel like a lot of people want to kind of... Okay, Rita, thank you. I find it funny, the conversation between Milo and Cathcart, for how ridiculous it was. Can we say that I started this book liking Milo, and now I really hate him? Thank you, Kenzie Courtney. I think you and I are on the same page. Milo is undoubtedly intelligent, but what is intelligence without integrity? That's a great question to always ask. To me, Milo was one of the greatest antagonists, bombing his squadron, overcharging his soldiers, stealing equipment, and in doing so causing the death of other soldiers, and then joining with, what's his name, Private C. Wintergreen to create a bigger corporation. Also, at one point, remember, he admitted that he was telling them where, like, helping German artillery. And I think that's one of the things that he was trying to bring through, like, that Heller, I think, was commenting on was, like, remember what World War II did for the United States industrially? The United States before World War II was a big power and a country, but after World War II, because of the fact that it was one of the ones unscathed by the war, because of the fact that it had this industry that was building this new thing, and there was a huge economy coming forward, the United States was able to gain like a huge place after World War II. That was when it started. That's when the Cold War started, right? When World War II, that's when that idea of like, oh, we could be a superpower was really becoming a thing. So that capitalism was beneficial to a certain point, but then it started to become to, the best interest for the organization and not the people it was working for. I don't know. I felt like it was really interesting. World War II ended the Depression. Exactly. The economy completely changed after that. And capitalism really started to be seen as this thing, but I think Heller might have, maybe he was warning us about that, or maybe he was like, look at the benefits, but then also look at the what the detriment of this possibility. H.M. O'Connell, I honestly don't care for this book that much. It did teach me a few things I wouldn't have come on to before, but maybe it's because I'm only 15, didn't understand everything completely. I'm 25, I didn't understand everything completely. I know that I need to read it again. I think that's something about books, though. You always change your perspective, and it'll always be different because of where you are at that time of your life. So all good. I'm glad you finished it. I'm glad you went through it like we did. I feel the same way, and it's all good. I started liking Milo, but then grew to hate him. But like Kenzie said, he had no integrity, and that kind of ruined his character, so I grew to hate him as a person. I think at first it was all funny and cool, because he was doing things that everyone thought was interesting, and he was helping everyone. But then slowly, when that stopped being as much of a focus, and he could use that power to only help himself, he started doing that. And I think that's one of the drawbacks. I felt bad for the chaplain. Oh! What the hell happened to Major Major? Can someone explain that to me? Did he really just disappear? Because that's what... at one page there was like, Major Major's gone. And I was like, what do you mean he's gone? A moment of silence, please, for the disappearance, both literal and figurative, Major Major. Yes! I think there's a lot of similarities between 1984, Fahrenheit 441, and that book. In all three, there's a leader who forces the others to do something against their will. Well, I think that's just the way the world works. You're not always going to have people telling you to do things you want to do. But I agree with that. He must have just jumped out of the window to avoid someone to talk to him. He must have just, like, either run away or literally just disappeared, and he's like, I don't know. I'm proud of the chaplain, too. I like the chaplain. Thank you. I want to thank you for your advice. I started reading while listening to the book, and it really helped. To me, it was a whole game changer for the book. I was able to get in. I was able to understand it more, take more from reading. I didn't have to reread things. I'm glad you enjoyed it, too. I'm glad that worked. Now you know, that's always an option. You can always say, oh, I'll read the audiobook. Like, I'll listen to the audiobook while I read. Now you know that's something that really works for you. And then the cool thing is you can speed up the speed at which the audiobook is read, and you can start going in that direction as well. What did I think of the ending? I think Cathcart and, Scheisskopf and all of those generals are all just jerks. And it's really sad when we see that we have leadership, when leadership is bad. It's a very sad, scary thing. When human lives just become means to an end for you. I think that's disgusting. So yeah, I didn't like them. I hated their decision to work with him in that way, but I really respect Yossarian's integrity there and being like, I'm not giving them what they want. And the chaplain felt bad about influencing that, but can we talk about how we all hate Arfie? How he's just like a jerk? like a terrible person. But I think Arfie's thing kind of continued my thought process of like this loss of humanity that was happening to some characters. Either, to me, it was like no one got out alive. Either you died, or you lost your humanity. Right? And I think he died in a figurative way. He completely lost his humanity. And it was just awful. But think about what Orr had to do for his survival. Orr had to play the game, and he had to die to them. I think Arfie's past definitely had something to do with it. Wait, there's a sequel. What do you mean a sequel? So I see what Orr had to die in order to live. Think about it. He had to like die in order for them to get off the radar, and that's what they're trying to do to Yasarian. They were trying to just get rid of him. Called closing time. No, I did not know that. Yo, I felt really bad for Nate Lee. I still can't get over it. That one was weird. That one hurt me because I think Nate Lee was like a good dude. Although, troll that Nate Lee was trying to hang on to through, I think, the woman that he was like, with. And it was interesting. I don't know. It was what did Gaia say? Are they here? I feel like most people who physically died were the good guys, and the bad guys made it out alive, but the price of humanity, so I suppose they all died. No one wins this war. I think, yes, sorry, that was like the point I was coming to. I totally agree. I think you're 100% right. I think that was very well said. I think no one wins. They all have to sacrifice something very important to them. Let's not read the sequel. We'll worry about the sequel in a bit. Like, we still have the sequel to Kill a Mockingbird to read, or the prequel to the sequel, Ghost Set of Watchmen. I do want to read that with you guys because I love To Kill a Mockingbird, so I think that'd be a good one to read. But we have time. We're not going to worry about that. I'm going to grab Breakfast of Champions. Let's talk about this book for like another 10 minutes, and then we're going to go into that book because there's a lot I want to say. So if you guys give me 1 second. Move this way. I love staring at the lamp. What you guys think? A nice lamp, right? So To Kill a Mockingbird, I think we'll do Ghost Set of Watchmen at some point, but that'll be in some other time. New York has been great. Thank you for asking. I missed it. I haven't been here in forever. Yeah, it's been really nice. So, let's do one final round of thoughts. Last thoughts about Catch-22. Anything you want to say, quotes you want to go. Let's do like one last round. Just kind of talk about it, let it all out, and we can put this book away. I'd give everything I own to Yasarian, but since I don't own everything, I can't give everything, can I? I can't give everything to him, can I? Milo back again with lack of morals. Yeah, he's just a bad person, Milo. Or was he corrupted? Because remember, in the beginning of the war, that wasn't his original job. I think maybe there's something corrupting about war and power, frankly. And I think that was also what Milo's original intention was, to get better food. And then the minute he started to see what that could do for him, he started down this path of using more of his power to get away with things, get more things he wanted. So yeah, I think there was a corruption involved there. That war, either it takes pieces from you, it corrupts you, it takes your humanity, or it literally takes your life. And then the enemy are people that are trying to kill you, regardless of what side they are on. And Milo was trying to kill people. So really complicated to get into, but then really interesting. Especially when I refer to Catch-22. Milo sounds very black-hearted. Maybe. I'm glad that Yossarian was escaping, but I think that's the Catch-22. He has given his life to the war. His soul and his freedom. He may be alive, but he will always be running. I agree. It's weird, the only thing he could do to save himself was to condemn himself, so to speak. I think Milo did what he needed to survive and self-preserve. He saw an opportunity and took it. Okay, I'll do that. But he also did it at the expense of his own country, his fellow soldiers, his people that lived with him. Remember, he directed German artillery. He bombed the base at one point because the Germans put him up to it. He became a mercenary and a soldier for hire. He was not fighting any war. He was working for the person who paid the most. So for him, I would consider Milo like a spy or something. He was doing terrible things. When I look up and I see people cashing in, I don't see heaven or saints or angels. I see people cashing in on every decent impulse of human tragedy. And that's the thing, all of Yossari, think about it, every single person that Yossari originally talked to, except for the chaplain, was dead. Well, Dunbar, what about Dunbar? Do you remember him? Morale was deteriorating, and it was all Yossarian's fault. The country was in peril. He was jeopardizing his traditional rights of freedom and independence by daring to exercise them. Catch-22. Ideals are good, but people are sometimes not so good. Milo. What about the part where they could fabricate official reports to suit any situation and their needs at the moment? Disgusting. Well, that's not too far-fetched from other things in current law and society, and especially in war where there were no rules and no one was holding them accountable. I like how Lumenden, the guy who died on the plane, was such a part of Yossarian, and we all know about him. He's dead. Feel like a death has more impact on Yo-Yo than life. Well, I think the only thing that makes him really realize he's alive is when people die. And there's something scary about that. Because he can't really appreciate the life that's given, and people don't seem to do it until they die, and then even then they're not. Oh, Dunbar disappeared, that's right. So what was up with the disappearing? Consciously, sir, consciously. Yossarian corrected in an effort to help. I hate them consciously. Alright guys, how much time do we have left now? Will someone give me a time check? Yeah, I've had sniffles lately. I don't know what's going on. Love had transmogrified him into a romantic idiot. Is that the word? 30 minutes. Awesome. Awesome. Because I do want to talk a bit about Breakfast of Champions before we get into it. So, are we ready to put this book down? Our 9th book. Are we ready? Are you ready to put this down? Overall, I love this book. I think it has a lot of valuable messages hidden within it. Like its characters, it isn't perfect, but it's worth the time and effort to read it. Kenzie Courtney, I agree 100%. I thought this book was interesting. There were times where I was battling with it, times where I enjoyed it, times where I was excited by it, and times where I was upset by it. It took me on a journey, I would say, this book. And I'm excited to read it again at some point. But not sometime soon. Well, I think either they were disappeared, and that means they either killed them, or they disappeared in the same way that or Yossarian intended to, where they go to Rome or something and then just dip. So we're going to put this bad boy down, guys. We did it. 9 books. Everyone, let's say goodbye to Mr. Joseph Heller's novel, Catch-22. Thank you, Catch-22. You were very long. All right, so next week, everybody, I'm going to jump right into it. Whoop. Give me a second, guys. Oh, you got it? Okay. My breakfast just got here. Sorry, I always lock that. So, we're going to give it a sec because my breakfast is getting here. But give me 1 second. Everyone take like 30 seconds. Recoup. Put the book down. I'll leave it up like this so everyone can look. Take a screenshot if you need it. Is that cappuccino? Yes. All right, so Breakfast of Champions. We're going to talk about this one because this book is, it was the first Kurt Vonnegut novel I ever read. So there's a lot about it. And the funny thing is I'm in New York City right now, and we're starting it, but I haven't, the first time I've read it was in New York City 5 years ago or something like that. So it's cool that it's almost cyclical for me. I'm going to read the preface with you guys because there are a few things that I want to point out, and there are things that I think are really cool. Oh, thank you. I'm glad I watched your video as well. Yes, I will bring that up. Is it Lizbeth? Lizbeth? I was having that conversation with a friend of mine that lately the first few books we chose, I think they're all American authors, and we have a severe disparity in the amount of women authors we've read as well. So I'm trying to start rounding that out. We have Lord of the Flies coming up next, but then I'm going to start kind of going into more women authors, authors that aren't American. I'm thinking I'm going to start more Latin American too, because I want to read some of those. So stuff like that. God, that's good. So yeah, I want to start bringing more diversity into our literature. These were all books that I had on my list, so I'm glad we got them off, and now it's starting to go into the next thing. Also, can we just talk about, this is our 10th book. We've done 10 books. I think that's incredible. But, so Breakfast of Champions. Yeah, so badass. I'm very proud of everyone. Thank you guys for staying here. Thank you guys for joining on. Thank you guys for reading with us. I have a couple of friends reading Breakfast of Champions with us too, so maybe they'll jump on a live if they could. I'm excited that we're on our 10th book now, and yes, we are legends, and yeah, it's really cool. So next week we're not gonna have a live in honor of Easter. Spend time with your families. We're just gonna read farther into Breakfast of Champions. I'm thinking we're gonna read half the book by the time we do have a live. Is that okay? Yeah, Tanya, trust me, I'm looking into it. I've had a very serious, not discussion, but I was like, we need to start diversifying our literature. So don't worry, everyone. I'm on it. The next set of 10 books will be extremely diverse. And it'll be a lot of fun. And I'm hoping to have more of my friends on lives with us, reading books with us, so they can, we can split screen and we can really talk. So I'm going to read the preface of Breck 22, of Breakfast of Champions. And then we'll talk about what chapter, how far we're going to read, a little bit about the style of this book, and why I like it so much. So, the preface. If that's cool, if everyone wants me to read it. It's only about 2 or 3 pages long. I think it'd be fun. We read bit by bit. So I'll read the preface, and then we'll talk about a few things into this book, and then I need to preface this book as well for myself and for the rest of the book club. So I love that he starts off with this kind of as like a cheeky thing. The expression "Breakfast of Champions" is a registered trademark for General Mills Incorporated for use on a breakfast cereal product. The use of the identical expression as the title for this book is not intended to indicate an association with or sponsorship by General Mills, nor is it intended to disparage their fine products. This book is not as complicated. It's a little easier, but it deals with some of the language tends to be a little more mature. I don't want to say vulgar, but mature. Definitely a little more vulgar. When was this book written? Give me 1 second. So this book was written in 1973. So this book was written about, like, somewhere between 10 and 20 years after Slaughterhouse-5. Also, this book was Kurt Vonnegut turning 50. And feeling that at that point in his life then, he'd written quite a few books that did very well. He'd started to kind of see his life in a certain way, and now he was like, I feel like I can finally say things now. Whether he gave himself that permission or whether he felt he always had it. Even in the preface, he goes into being like, I'm not holding back any punches. I'm going in. And I think everyone's really going to enjoy that. Now, in that, though, I want everyone to, once again, if you are under the age of 18, this book does deal with mature themes, has mature language, and it just gets a little weird. So, if you do not... This book is full of drawings. Yes, you will see. Rita, just keep reading, you'll see. But if you have any question and or thought as to, should I read this book? Is this book going to be appropriate for me? Just ask your parents. Just be like, hey guys, I want to read this book. Is that cool? And if they say it's cool, then it's cool. And if they say it's not, then don't worry about it. This book is not going anywhere, I promise. It'll be okay, and you should feel like a rebel reading cool books. But always make not always. I don't know. I'm not gonna go farther than that. Just if you aren't sure, please check with your parents, because we're gonna have to talk a little more. I just want our conversation to be truthful and cool about the book, and I don't want us to have to worry about things. So, the name of the book is The Breakfast of Champions, and you cannot find the book in Italian. I will do stuff this week to see if we can find it. I think the style of the book is very easy to read. It's a very fun book. So I think we will read the first 100 pages or so, up to chapter 12, which is about page 105. All right, so I think for the first live, whenever that will be, we might do it on Saturday, because it's not Easter Sunday, and I don't want to mess with that. But so we might do it Saturday. You know what? Let's plan this the first live of this book we'll do on Saturday for all of our guys in Australia, so that they can join us and it's not going to be weird, and they can start this book with us right. And then we'll do the last live of this book on a Saturday too. What do you guys think? Good. Thank you. I don't know how difficult this book is in English. I don't want to say it's easier. I don't want to say it's harder. But I think we'll do Saturday this one, and we'll read up to chapter 12 for Saturday the 31st. Up to chapter 12. There's one thing I do want to bring up in the preface, though. All right. So in the preface, I just want to bring out everyone. We're going to talk about the preface as well. So Nicole's joining. Yes, she's back. All right, cool. This is a book that I think you could have people read with us as long as you tell them it's a little more mature. This is a book that I think generally will be liked. We've already read a book in Kurt Vonnegut's style. We've already kind of started to see the way he kind of looks at the world, and this book is an extension of that. And we'll get to see some of our favorite characters from other Kurt Vonnegut books. Kurt Vonnegut kind of creates a universe for himself. So Kilgore Trout, who we did hear about in Slaughterhouse-5, is the protagonist of this book. I think Mr. Rosewater makes an appearance as well, from God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater, and so on. So there's a lot in here, but there's one part in the book that I want to leave you guys with today, and it's in the preface. And it's from Kurt Vonnegut himself. So he goes, "What do I myself think of this particular book? I feel lousy about it, but I always feel lousy about my books. My friend Knox Berger said one time that a certain cumbersome novel read as though it had been written by Philiboid Studge. That's who I am when I write what I am seemingly programmed to write. This book is my 50th birthday present to myself. I feel as though I am crossing the spine of a roof, having ascended one slope. I'm programmed at 50 to perform childishly, to insult the Star-Spangled Banner, to scrawl pictures of Nazi flags and an asshole and a lot of other things with a felt-tip pen. To give an idea of the maturity of my illustrations for this book, here's my picture of an asshole." I think I'm trying to clear my head of all the junk in there. The assholes, the flags, the underpants. Yes, there is a picture of underpants in this book. I'm throwing out characters from my other books, too. I'm not going to put on any more puppet shows. I think I am trying to make my head as empty as it was when I was born onto this damaged planet 50 years ago. I suspect that this is something most white Americans and non-white Americans who imitate white Americans should do. The things other people have put into my head, at any rate, do not fit together nicely and are often useless and ugly. They're out of proportion with one another and are out of proportion with life as it is really outside my head. I have no culture, no humane harmony in my brains. I can't live without culture anymore. So this book is a sidewalk strewn with junk, trash, which I throw over my shoulders as I travel in time, back to November 11th, 1922. I will come to a time in my backwards trip when November 11th, accidentally my birthday, was a sacred day called Armistice Day. When I was a boy and when Dwayne Hoover was a boy, the protagonist of this book, all the people of all the nations which had fought in the First World War were silent during the 11th minute of the 11th hour of Armistice Day, which was the 11th day of the 11th month. It was during that minute in 1918 that millions upon millions of human beings stopped butchering one another. I've talked to old men who were on battlefields during that minute, and they have told me in one way or another that the sudden silence was the voice of God. So we still have some among us who can remember when God spoke clearly to mankind. Armistice Day has become Veterans Day. Armistice Day was sacred, Veterans Day is not. So I will throw Veterans Day over my shoulder. Armistice Day I will keep. I don't want to throw away any sacred things. What else is sacred? Oh, Romeo and Juliet, for instance. And all music is. Philip Boyd Studge. So this book, Kurt Vonnegut's really going in and making a comment. He's really saying something. And Kilgore Trout, I think, is the perfect protagonist to do so. The marginalized, what's it called? He wasn't respected until later in his life. It's going to be a really interesting book, and it's going to be a lot of fun for us to read together. Be prepared for it to get a little weird. It's going to get a little weird, but it's going to be fun. So, we're going to read up to chapter 12 by Saturday, because Sunday's Easter, and we should all, even if you don't practice Easter or whatever, you should spend that day with your family or with friends or doing something you love. And while the book club's fun, we'll take that day off, so we'll do it on Saturday. I can't believe we did it. We read the longest book we've read, the most difficult book we've read with Rosende Reads. Thank God. I'm glad to be done with it. And we're swinging back into Breakfast of Champions. Today's live's going to be a little shorter. I'm sorry, guys. But Saturday, I cannot wait to talk to you about this book. This was my first Kurt Vonnegut book, and I hope that you guys are encouraged to read more of his work after these couple books. On your own personal time, I would recommend Cat's Cradle or God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater, and then going from there. They're all great. So, I will see you guys on Saturday. Congratulations, you read 9 books. And if you hadn't read before, or you are a reader, or you're not, you should still be proud of yourself that you've read 1. Every time you pick up a book, you're entering a new world, and you're giving yourself the opportunity to change your perspective. And that's a fascinating way to live life. So keep exploring, keep searching, keep being positive forces of change for the world. To everyone that went out and marched yesterday, I'm proud of you. Thank you for using your voice to try to enact the change you want to see in our world. For everyone in the United States that marched, I stand with you. For everyone outside of the United States that stood with us or in one way, shape, or another has the solidarity with this movement of just, common sense gun laws, thank you. And for everyone that agrees or disagrees, continue to do what you can to use your voice to actively work towards something better. I will tell you a quote from the documentary that Diego and I that Diego directed, my documentary, the one that Diego directed, I produced, our documentary together. We have one guy named Gene who says, "You owe a service to a society that allows you to disagree. And in that allowing to disagree, your service is that you must work towards something better." So everyone, you're allowed to disagree. But in that allowance to disagree, you must actively work towards what is better for everybody. I think that's important, and I think enough is enough. So yes, thank you guys so much for your time. Enjoy your weekend. Tell your parents you love them. Keep being positive forces of change in the world. Go somewhere cool. I think I'm going to a museum today. I don't know, but I'm doing something fun. Thank you guys. I will see you next week when we will talk about this book. Congratulations on 9 books. You guys are awesome. I can't believe Rosende Reads did it. We're on our 10th book. I will see you guys next weekend. Have a good one, guys.